Hello, everyone. This is me, Helen Morris. Little bit of background. We will start with a little bit of background about ourselves. I started working in IT in 1984, so clocked up 40 years plus now, which is terrifying, but there we are. 2004, I started specialising in ITIL, service management, consultancy, all of that kind of stuff. And in 2006, I joined forces with a lady you may be familiar with, some of you, the indomitable Liz Gallagher, who is a tremendous force to work with, and I've been privileged to work with her for a number of years. So my story really around this is much more about menopause. I relate so closely to Miller's story about burnout because I also had a massive burnout situation myself. But all of my experiences came to a head around about 2020 when we all shut up and disappeared into our boxes and survived COVID. And during that time, I retrained. Retirement was coming and I retrained. So since then, I've become a mindfulness teacher. I got a diploma in counselling and psychology. I qualified as a menopause coach, and I now also hold a diploma in mindfulness-based clinical hypnosis. So I've really flipped my career. However, I still do training in ITIL, but this is about menopause and mental health. And I experienced a surgical menopause in 1997. So that's a good long time ago. So I have been in the menopausal state for a number of years. You would have to have been hiding under a rock, I think, for the last couple of years, not to have noticed that menopause is being spoken about. If nothing else, it's in almost every advert on television trying to persuade us that every, pad or shampoo or whatever else will help us get through our menopause. But it's out there, and we are now talking about it. It's part of equality, discrimination, and identity. The Labour manifesto actually states that now they're in power, they will be recommending that menopause is included as part of equality at work. It hasn't been included in the Act itself, but the questions are being raised about, are women entitled to a different approach? Because we physiologically go through some changes which are none of our fault and we can't stop them. And the demographics that the Office of National Statistics tell us about tell us that that we are, as women aged between 50 and 64, which would put me very neatly in there. I'm 61 this year. We are the fastest growing economically active group in the workplace. There you go. So watch out, fellas, we're coming. And because of that, a lot of us are thinking about the way that fairness works for us. And I'm a great believer in not so much the idea of equality, but the idea of equity. And you can see in this lovely little diagram, which I have shamelessly stolen from the Equality Tool website, but you can see here a lovely diagram which shows you equality gives everyone a box so they can look over the fence. Equity gives everyone the appropriate box so they can look over the fence. And that really is what we as women are asking for, I believe. We're not asking for equality as such, we're asking for equity. We're asking to be given the same opportunities and the same chances. And it's very difficult to talk about menopause and women in workplace without coming across as some sort of raging feminista, which I absolutely am not. But there are things that all of us need to think about. Appropriate is exactly the word, Simone. We need to get the appropriate things. And whether you are suffering with a disability or whether it's your gender or whatever else, it's appropriateness of what we provide so that everyone has a fair chance. And so what we're looking for and what I'm trying to deal with here is that we need to recognize that there is an issue for women aged between 50 and 64. These are stats from the Office of National Statistics. They're a bit old now. I think these were about 2017 or so. They've probably been updated, but I couldn't find them updated online this morning when I was looking for them to get the latest for today. But 4.5 million working women. And we are all, those of us who are aged between 50 and 64, likely to be experiencing some symptoms of the menopause. And a third of these women will potentially take some sick time because of that. And that equates to approximately 14 million working days a year. But that's not all, because when we look at menopause, it's all well and good to talk about the menopause and your post-menopausal life. Well, menopause is actually the rest of your life. There is perimenopause, which is the starting point. And that can start to happen 10 to 15 years before the menopause kicks in. So any female aged over 35, or anyone who had ovaries at birth aged over 35, is potentially going to be affected by some symptoms. And just in case you're not aware of the definitions of all of these things, I've just popped them onto a slide for you so that you can see exactly what it is we're talking about. So perimenopause are the years leading up to the menopause. The average age, and this is taken from UK statistics as well as American statistics, so quite a broad spectrum. The average age is around about 40. And this is when estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone levels in women begin to reduce. It's a perfectly natural part of what happens to us. We've gone through the starting point with going through puberty, where everything G's up and gets going in our teens. And from the age of around 40, then those hormones begin to reduce. Your ovaries start to reduce the amount that they produce. The menopause itself is defined as the period you have where you've had 12 months of no menstrual periods at all. And when you hit month 12, so you hit your 12th month of not having had a period, you are in menopause. Well done. Congratulations. The average age is 51. And then you are in post-menopause. There is no transition. People talk about transitioning the menopause. I don't know where they're going, because you are either post-menopausal or you're not, as in you're not with us at all, because this is the rest of your life. So as soon as you've hit that magical period of no periods of 12 months, then that's it. You are in menopause for the rest of your days. Which may sound rather shocking to those of you who are thinking, oh, I'll transition it, who you're coming up to it. But actually, sorry, folks, you're just in it forever. And it's how that happens. Obviously, the symptoms recede and things change as you get older and as our bodies age. But that's it. You are in that state for life. We can, absolutely. Yes, let's all just link together and go, yay, for those of us who are in peri or any other state of menopause. You can, of course, have a surgical menopause at any age. And that was my experience. I was 33, as I said earlier. And that's when a surgeon comes in and decides somewhat peremptorily that the best way to cure your endometriosis or any other women's problems you might be having is to whip everything out. So my ovaries went, my womb went, and also my appendix while he was in there, which was a surprise, but I'm sure it was beneficial. But there we go. And that was my start of menopause. I no longer had ovaries, therefore I was no longer producing those hormones. And that, as I say, can happen at any age. For me, it was 33. Some people go through an early menopause medically. They may go through early menopause as early, I've heard, as some poor soul who went through it at 21. Not surgically induced, just simply her body did that to her. So there's lots of, it's a big normal curve. Most of us fall in the area of everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be normal, and you'll hit it around about 51, having had maybe 5 or 6 years of perimenopause beforehand. And then we deal with it from then on. So that's how it works. And it is purely and simply the reduction of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Ladies, we need that one as well. So as I say, why am I here? What's my story? Well, I was surgically given the menopause at 33. I was told at the time, bearing in mind this is nearly 30 years ago now, I was told at the time that I might get some hot flushes, but it would be fine because I could take HRT and that would be it. And I'd be lovely. HRT triggered massive migraines for me. And that was untenable. And when I say massive migraines, I do mean they were debilitating to the point that I couldn't work. I was having 2, maybe 3 migraines a week, and they were lasting a couple of days. So basically, I was just having migraines, and that was my life. So I came off HRT. There was all of this took a lot of time. The change of HRT, each time I changed HRT, there was another 3 months of trying that particular thing to see whether it worked. So in all, I think I spent about 2 years juggling to see if I could find something that would be comfortable for me. And in the end, the consultants and my GP decided that the best thing for me to do would be to stop taking HRT. So I did. And then I said, so what can I do in place of that? And they said, and that really was it. So there were no real suggestions about how I could deal with that. And I promptly then went on to discover how many symptoms of things there actually are relating to the menopause. So I struggled with the list. There you go. I'm not going to go right the way through the list, but because we have just heard Miller sharing such a personal story, I'm going to share a very personal moment with you all today. Last week, I was in the UK visiting family. I live in France, and so we go back every year to visit family. And we did the whistle-stop tour around the UK, visiting all the children and the grandchildren and all of those things. I have lots of both. And I forgot to take my hormone supplements with me. Halfway through the week, I was already being, I was having the hot flushes and feeling a bit nauseous at times and doing all sorts of other weird and wonderful things. But if you see on the third line there, on the third column there, we have incontinence. I had a moment of that in a car park in Milton Keynes just before my husband and I went off to London to go and see Bill Bailey and meet my brother and his wife. And there I was in the car park in Milton Keynes, in floods in so many different ways. Incontinence hit, I burst into tears. Fortunately, I had a change of clothing with me. Fortunately, my husband has been with me for 30 years and so knows what to do in these circumstances, and he doesn't wring his hands and cry himself. He very practically finds things like an old t-shirt to dry me off and puts the doors open on the car so that I can start to get changed. Yes, we have a routine for this because it used to happen a lot. Hasn't happened to me for years, but there you go. I wet myself in a public place. It's not a good feeling when you're 60, but that is one of the side effects that can come about when you are in that menopause state. So hope it doesn't happen to you. The good thing is that not everybody has all the symptoms and not everybody has them severely. Personally, I went through the whole list of all sorts of things, but at the time I was going through all of this, I had absolutely no idea what was happening to me. And I was treated for depression and anxiety. I've had more scans and goodness knows what's to find out why my bladder was playing up, why I had migraines, why I did this, all of that. All inconclusive, all saying, no, you're absolutely fine. We don't know why you're like that. No one mentioned hormones ever. I left my IT operational management role at 40 because I couldn't cope with it anymore. And I so resonated with Mila because I just couldn't do it. So I went freelance, and that was actually when I started specialising in consultancy and training and being my own boss, so that I could actually just set my own timeline. So I became freelance and I worked 3 days a week, and I have done ever since. Because I can't work full time. I just can't. My body won't allow me to do that. And because there were no medical reasons for any of my symptoms, and I was just being treated for each symptom individually, and nobody was looking at the whole me, I began, Simone, go now. I began to look and convince myself, that I really needed to investigate what on earth was going on. And I discovered, woohoo, the impact of hormones. This was, as I say, 20 years ago now. And I am so grateful for the fact that we now talk about this, that we talk about hormones, that we talk about the impact of perimenopause, we talk about the impact of menopause. All of those things are important, and we speak about them, because when I was going through it, it's not a poor me, it's just fact. No one talked to me about it. I had to do all my own work. I changed my lifestyle. I looked at my gut biome. Do look that up. That's very exciting. I went alcohol free. I now haven't had a drink for 28 years, which makes me sound like I had a terrible problem with alcohol. I don't. Just my body doesn't like it, so I stop. I exercise gently. I do weight-bearing exercise, so that I maintain my muscle strength and my bone density. And I discovered that dealing with all the stress and horrors of all the things that go on in your body, I discovered also that mindfulness was very helpful to me. And again, I resonate so much with Mila. Sleep, oh my goodness, who knew? Sleep, rest, taking a nap, being relaxed, all so very, very important. So I completely changed my work and my life balance. And recognized that, during all of this, the most important thing to do was to look after me. And it isn't selfish, it's essential. So I decided I would start to share this knowledge. So I trained as a mindfulness teacher, and all of the other qualifications and accreditations I've got. It's all, for me, about sharing the knowledge and being able to support and help other people who are going through this. And the other people who are going through this potentially are 50% of the population. It's not a small demographic. So we really do need to make sure that we understand what's happening. Not everyone recognizes all the symptoms. There are various myths about this. It's hot flushes, it's night sweats, it's mood swings. Yes, it is. But it is also these. So, just sit back and watch them all go by. I have at some point experienced in the last 30 years almost all of these, apart from osteoporosis. Hooray! I have good bone density. Lucky me. No, not lucky me. I exercise, and I do weight-bearing exercise for all of these things. And here we go. Yes, in you come with your, I suffer from this, I've got that, I've got this one, I've got that one. There are so many symptoms. It's really very, very difficult to work out what it is and what it isn't. And so many of the symptoms mirror other complaints. 80% of women will experience some debilitating symptoms. The delight is, oh, Sue, yeah, it's a weird one, but with you there. Yes, every now and then, leaky, very strange. But everyone will suffer from some, and it's a unique experience for each of us. The severity of your symptoms will vary. It will vary person to person, and it will also vary in intensity and extremity from day to day. So we really are, a huge hodgepodge of all sorts of things going on. And it's very difficult for the medical profession to apply a one-size-fits-all solution. So the difficulty that we have is that a lot of the things, as I say, do mirror other conditions. And one of the most commonly misdiagnosed, I think, conditions is those that affect our mental health. This tends to be one of the earlier signs in perimenopause. You may not be missing periods. You may not feel, too bad, but you may find that one morning you wake up with massive anxiety and you doubt your ability to do your job. You doubt everything about yourself. Imposter syndrome is there. Your esteem is suddenly down by your ankles. Your well-being has gone out of the window. You start forgetting things that you normally remember. One of the things that is on that list is aphasia. Aphasia has now become known because Bruce Willis has aphasia. Good for him, not to do with his menopause, fortunately. It's an awful condition. It means you forget words. You forget the names of things or the words for things. And that can happen with very simple things. I forgot the word for pencil once, and my husband let me describe it. I said it was a wooden implement that you wrote with that had graphite in the middle. Sometimes they come with an eraser at the end. And can you please tell me what that is instead of grinning at me? Your partner may find that you are slightly more difficult to live with during this period. Unstable, irritable, unstable moods, irritability. And every time I do one of these presentations or I talk to people about the menopause, my husband always says, should I be there too? Because quite frankly, I think you need to hear my experiences of living with you, living with it. So we all have, all sorts of things that we have to deal with. But when it comes to anxiety and depression, then very often it's not recognized as a hormonal problem. Is it a new mental health experience? Do you have a history of mental health issues? Do you have workplace stress? Do you have family and relationship problems? All of those can be, of course, triggering factors for any mental health issues and anxiety and depression. But can you also just remind your GP or your doctor or whoever that you are of an age, so you are more likely to yeah, absolutely, andropause is the thing, mate. You are more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression during this timeline. And it's nothing you can do anything about. And the other sad thing about being misdiagnosed with having mental health issues is that very often GPs or well-meaning medical professionals will prescribe for you the antidepressants. Rather sadly, if it's hormonally related, you can take as many antidepressants to whatever strength you like and it won't touch it, because you need to address the hormone imbalance, not the serotonin imbalance and all of those kind of things. But what you do need to do is, as so many people are now saying in the chat, you do need to make other people aware of your situation, because if you don't, then you are struggling with this on your own and it will become a really big burden for yourself. So help yourselves. They will be. My internet connection has suddenly told me it's unstable. I hope I'm still with you.
We had a mini pause rather than the menopause.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm back, I hope. So use an app or a journal. I can't think for the life of me what it's called. I think it's the Balance app. Yes, it is. That's come back in. The Balance app is fantastic. That's what's her name? Newsom, Dr. Newsom, who was slammed in the Kirsty Walk program, but actually does some really good work. Consult your GP. Take your tracking with you. Go to your menopause ambassadors. I am so pleased to see that somebody just said they've got menopause ambassadors in their place of work. Fantastic. Talk to them and think about the things that will address and help your mental health, because there are many, many things that will help you. Cognitive-based therapies, hypnotherapy, mindfulness, having a coach or an ambassador or engaging with anyone who can help you with these things will help you. And the better you get help with your mental health and your self-esteem and your ability to deal with those things, the better you will be able to deal with the other menopausal symptoms. I'm not lying to say, last week I wet myself and I was in tears. Of course I was, but I wasn't in tears for long, because that was just the shock and the horror of it. And then, we've done this before, and I know it's nothing bad, and I know it's nothing I need to concern myself with. I've got all the stuff ready. I can get myself sorted out. And I was back on track and fine again within, 20, 30 minutes. When that's happened to me in the past, it's taken me a day to get over that. Because that's awful, isn't it? Admitting that you've just wet yourself in public. That's just, dreadful. But it's not. It's just a symptom. So this is something that you can get help with. You can get through anything, but you do it with help, and you do it with the assistance of professionals. And as Simone quite rightly points out, your emotions are not you, they're transitory, they go. And having tools like mindfulness in your toolbox to help with those are things that can really help you. Just a last couple of words on the demographics that you need to be aware of for your workplace. We can actually narrow down who is affected by this. Direct impact. All men are impacted by this. You've only got to ask the partners. And you are probably working with women of that age. It is directly impacting you guys. This is not something that we're doing it on our own. You are experiencing it, and you are experiencing us experiencing our whatever symptoms we have. So women between the ages of 45 and 65 are directly impacted, and so are all men. And we need support and awareness and policies and champions and counselling and coaching. And we just need people to be aware and supportive. We're not asking for anything different. We're just asking to be given that equity. Give us the right box. The potential impact is anyone who's leading up to this, and maybe in the perimenopause issues where the symptoms come and go and it's all a bit weird. But again, awareness, education, understanding. All men need to be included in this. And if you're in the happy situation of being pre-perimenopause, then you've got this to look forward to. But you can help yourself, because you can improve your nutrition, you can improve your exercise, you can improve your well-being, you can manage the way that you interact with your own mental health and your own body. So you can prepare yourself for this. My daughters are, as you could imagine, well prepared now. So everyone is affected, but men are affected throughout, and we need to share what's happening to us with our men. No workplace can afford to ignore this. It affects the bottom line. It is a very significant effect. And for anyone who says, well, my mother didn't have any problems. Yes, she did. She just shut up and put up and got on with it. And it was different then, and the pressures weren't as much. And an awful lot of ladies had, had all sorts of symptoms which they just got on with and ignored, and had very uncomfortable lives. We don't have to be uncomfortable. It's just a momentary thing, as Simone says, just because you've forgotten a word for this precise second doesn't mean that you've lost all your mental faculties. But it's important that we have that support around us, so that the awareness is there in the workplace, so that if your 55-year-old female senior manager suddenly goes bright red and sweaty in the middle of a meeting, which I used to do on a regular occasion, by the way, it's not something to make fun of. It's not something to be silly about. It's just something that happens, and that's the thing. I get all sorts of hormonal symptoms when I'm teaching. I just throw them out there because why not? Hello, and let's face it, when I'm teaching something like the service management frameworks at ITIL and SIAM and all those kind of things, I still teach to majority men. So I stand in front of them, or sit in front of them as I am now, and I will say, oh, I'm terribly sorry, I'm just having a moment. Can one of you fill in the word for me? I'm a menopausal woman, and that's what happens to you. And I'll get nervous laughter and that kind of thing, but they get used to it. But all sorts of things can be helped. So get some professional help in your workplace. Have some policies. Have some guidelines. Employ some counsellors. Put some ambassadors in place. There's loads of places that do training for menopause ambassadors now. Just get people talking about it, because this is something that happens to every woman to some degree or another. And in case that hasn't convinced you, do be aware, those of you who are in senior roles and senior management positions, that the way that you treat your menopausal and perimenopausal women is now becoming a category in employment tribunals. So if common decency, humanity, and kindness doesn't get you to it, and the bottom line and sick pay and all of those things doesn't get you to it, and the loss of women in senior roles because they just give up when they get to about 45, 50 doesn't bring you to it, they're going to take you to court. Is that enough of a reason? So my impassioned plea is, be aware of this, talk about this. It's perfectly normal. It's perfectly natural. Help is out there. It should be in your policies. It should be in your health and safety approaches. And if it isn't, you need to ask the question, why? So there you go. That's me sharing my story, a little bit of information about menopause, and I am more than happy to talk to anyone and anyone about symptoms, how to manage symptoms, how menopause, how mindfulness, hypnotherapy, CBT, all of those things that I am now trained in can help you. So here's all my contact details. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you very much, Helen. I mean, so much useful information there. As a man on the call, it's hard not to feel a little bit inadequate at the end of that, for all the things that we don't have to suffer personally. But of course, as you say, it's all about support and communication and understanding, and being there for the women who are close to us and those that we work with.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for that. Thank you for all the comments that are going into the chat. You'll see a lot there from Simone Moore. She's not one of the speakers on the program today, but she's another life coach that we work closely with. She also lives in France.
She does, yes.
Is this part of the work-life balance that you moved to France?
Absolutely, it was. Yes. Yes, it was also, and again, resonating with Mila, I have 4 children. I moved to France and they live in the UK. I can recommend that distancing for your adult children. It's lovely.